you are where I am, but it is winter here in New England. So I'm going to do some twists and back bends, but also continue to work with this concept of compressing in to the center line of the body in order to expand safely out. So if you're new, I see a few new people or rejoinees. What does that mean? Very simple. You can do this standing, you can do this seated. I'm going to have a seat for a second. And in a very easy exercise, all you're going to do, which is probably what most of us want to do these days in the COVID catastrophe that we're living in, is to squeeze ourselves into a little embryonic ball. And so you can hold your knees, you could be on your back. Again, if you prefer to stand, I'm just going to grab my knees like this and bind them. I'm going to draw my chin into my chest, and I'm going to squeeze into my body like I'm going back into the womb, but also to compress and hug the muscles into the bones. To feel all the joint cavities and muscles hugging the bones, and then to release and open the legs like that. And just do this 3 or 4 times on your own. You can feel it in your body, you can conceptualize it in your mind, just the squeezing yourself. It should feel good, but don't over squeeze. And feel around the shoulders, feel around the hips, the knees, and then you just release and let the whole body open. Try it a few times on your back just for fun. If you prefer, if you're just going down and squeezing, I have my legs crossed, but they don't have to be. The only value is I can let the shins push against one another and create additional connection. And then I let the legs fall down, the arms fall out for plank. Maybe I cross the shins the other way. I hold my knees, I squeeze in, I engage my abdominal core. I try to keep the throat relaxed. Chin is slightly tucked into Jalandhara Bandha. And then release out. Maybe even slide one leg long, the other leg long. So we could theorize that, and you can keep trying this a few times, hugging and releasing, in order to fully experience an opening in the body, in the joint capsules, in the main frame of the body, which allows us to breathe fully. We could theorize that we need to squeeze into the center line and experience, both theoretically and more important, physically, what it means to hug the midline. And this is, of course, the central axis of the body. So that when we want to relax, either lying down, standing, or seated, we can truly do that without interference in the nagging pieces of the body that tend to hold tension. One more squeeze, and one more release. Then take a few breaths, whether you're seated still, or whether you're lying in Shavasana as I am, and begin to let the breath now flood into the body as if we've, in our squeezing process, dammed the river. We blocked the river of breath and energy from flooding in now to both lungs, from the lungs and the rib cage, the fascia along the back, front ribs, through the shoulders, through the elbows, into the hands. And then maybe on the next inhale, feeling the lower body that we've been working with as the diaphragm distends or presses down like a trampoline toward the frontal hip bones. And from the hips out through the knees into the feet. Can you feel that? And then open your mouth as you exhale. And again, whether you're seated, it's a little harder to do seated. So I would maybe encourage you to lie down for a few breaths and just bring the breath in, expanding out into the main frame of the body, the lungs, the ribs, and then out through the junctures we played with on Monday, Wednesday, of the shoulders and hips, which are the twin gates of the extremities, of the arms and the legs. One more inhale, one more exhale, and not just a divorced breath from the body, but really spreading the breath into those lungs and then through the back ribs, through the scapula, expanding out through the arms now, and releasing. So now this concept that we've been working with of being able to integrate and instead of squeezing, to extend, to expand the body like a helium balloon out through the extremities, through the ribs, and then exhale, releasing back to the center. So in a sense, we have two ways to use the muscles. One is very much a moving into the core, squeezing, and the other is a moving away, which if you're an anatomy person, you know as concentric contraction, the hugging, the squeezing, all the core work they make you do in Pilates and so forth. And then the eccentric contraction that we have as we expand out, utilizing the opening of the lungs, and the exhalation takes us back into a more relaxed sense of the central channel of the core. Okay, so we're all, hopefully you're all lying down at this point, and now you can squeeze your knees into both hands again, and see if you can use your first modality of the squeezing into the body to inhale, and hold the outsides of the knees, tuck your chin. Exhale, roll up to Navasana. You can try it a few times. And here I'm still in my concentric contraction, my squeeze that I started with as the premise for the first part of class. But now I'm just testing it out and balancing. So I go back and forward. And I'm, again, whether I have my feet open or interlocked, this squeeze and contraction allows me integration. And then release the legs down, the knees down, and you're in Sukhasana. Place the hands and take a few breaths to let the spreading out, the relaxation of this hugging of muscle to bone occur. Take a few breaths to feel your joint capsules, the primary ones being the two hips and the shoulders. And then we're going to stand up and play with these two concepts. You're going to need a strap, you're going to need either a yoga block, a towel roll, or my favorite, soccer ball. So soccer fans, grab your soccer ball. Towel people, you have a roll towel that you can squeeze. You're going to put that in between your legs like that, between your knees and your hips. And here we go in Tadasana, right out of the gate. And we're going to stand tall. And we're going to go ahead and squeeze the inner thighs as you inhale into that block, into that towel, soccer ball. Exhale, release. Very simple. Squeeze and release. Now we could articulate this a little more. If you were to put your hands on your frontal hip bones and you squeeze your inner thighs, can you feel the moving in of the frontal hip bones toward the midline? It's slight, and then exhale, release. And just do this 10 times or so. You can lift your toes off the mat and see if you can close your eyes and identify whether your right leg, your left leg perhaps is better or more dominant in its ability to squeeze every single muscle that you can now identify around the bones of the legs. As you roll inward with the hips, exhale, you roll out. So we add a piece to this puzzle, which we've been playing with, and that's the internal rotation of the hips or shoulders. And the external. So let's try to bring the arms into the picture now. You can keep your inner leg bind or squeezing device if you want, but let that chill out of it. Let's just take the hands and cross them to the fronts of the shoulders. Okay? So now as we inhale, we're going to sink down through chair pose, squeezing our blanket or block, and we're going to pull the shoulder points together. And exhale, we're going to stand and release the arms down to the side, lessening our squeezing. Let's try it again. Simple but subtle. Follow me. I cross the arms. Inhale, I sink down and squeeze the inner thighs in the towel roll. I roll the hips, hip points together. I feel the shoulders, front of the shoulders squeezing together so the shoulder blades come apart. Protraction. And release. Open the mouth, relax the jaw. All you're going to do is make this into a little vinyasa since it's Friday. Squeeze, and what is this? This is the same thing as I did at the beginning of class. If you're hardcore, go ahead and come down to a ball and hug your knees like that, and then stand up. You're not getting enough work with the simple exercise. But going simple at first, going subtle, is usually a good thing because then you don't get too caught up in efforting. So yes, I could go all the way down, either just hugging my knees, shoulders, but I want to be careful my low back as I become more and more ancient after 2 years of teaching this online yoga. Okay. So let's go ahead for a moment and take our towel rolls away. And we'll take this one step further. First, just step out to the side and swing a bit to get the release of the shoulder capsules, the hip capsules. So it's important once you've hugged into your joint capsule to then let them breathe, kind of like a fine bottle of wine, and we let them breathe. So we have a number of ways to do this in yoga, and if we were to step out to a triangle pose with the left foot back, right foot forward, a warrior two, we let the arms extend out, we straighten the front leg, even lift the front toes, inhale, and exhale, sink down. Like we're expanding out now, like a starfish, and exhale down into side angle. A Trikonasana prep, let the palms and the flesh of the palms stretch right into the central concavity of the palm, like you have a ball in the palm. The fingers cup in and then exhale. So what is this? This is the Second pattern, eccentric contraction. I now lift out of my hip joints or expand out of them to the feet, expand out of the shoulders, through the elbows, through the palms, and I land in the central axis of side angle, or if I feel like I've been up for hours, I go ahead and take a triangle pose and expand out of that. Expanding allows me pressure into the floor and the ability to come up and down. And we just switch sides. If you're just waking up this morning, you just go easy. So all we're doing now, we just squeeze our shoulders and hips. So now we open, hips are in an open pattern, the shoulders are in an open or externally rotated pattern, opposite to what we did with our towel roll. Inhale, and I exhale, settle down. And notice as you do this, again, very simple exercise, but you can get some work here. Inhale, fill out from the shoulders, through the elbows, through the palms, from the hips, through the knees to the feet. That's a lot of work to hold that isometric and isotonic connection. Then we fall into the midline. Really simple stuff, but most people who do vinyasa yoga are not sensing and feeling these subtleties. Okay, so let's come back, just getting warmed up and grab our strap. And now we find a little bit more subtle way of getting to that eccentric contraction. We're just going to stand on our strap like a jump rope like this. What did we do earlier, or minutes ago? We squeezed a towel roll between our inner thighs, and we found connection that way. But now if we wanted to expand out and isometrically push out against the feet, out against the strap as you inhale, and roll the shoulders back like they tell you to do in Iyengar yoga. And exhale, release. Soften your knees. Let your shoulders find a natural, normal position, which might be pitched forward a little bit. Inhale, expand out into your strap. Push the outer edges of the feet into the strap. Roll the shoulders back. Pull on the strap. Exhale, bend the knees. Relax any tension in the low back and the shoulders. Just start doing this. If you want a little more work, you can step out wider with the feet. Inhale, expand out like a starfish, like we just did in the triangle prep. And exhale, sink. Maybe bend the knees like you're doing the snowplow. Inhale, expand. The breath floods through the lungs, through the shoulders, through the elbows, through the hands, from the hips out to the knees, to the feet. Don't overdo it. You could actually do too much work and then sit and relax your tailbone down, let your spine be in the straight center line. Simple, simple preliminary work with the breath. Now, if this is making some sense to you, try to also feel, in addition to expansion out, eccentric contraction out, muscles and bones engaging together, and then releasing together. The external rotation of the shoulders and the hips on inhale, and the internal roll back on exhale. So that now we're, as we do this simple exercise, nobody even knows we're doing yoga. You could be at the beach. You don't even need a strap at a certain point. You are moving the joint capsules in the hips and the shoulders, strengthening, hugging, and then releasing. Okay, so let's leave that for a moment. Take the strap aside, stand in Tadasana, and just close your eyes and check in. And just become aware of your shoulders and your hips. And Whether you're locked in the knees and the elbows, to soften those two joints, and right away there'll be a softening of the hips and the shoulders. And stand in a modest proposal of Tadasana. So not too much of the squeezing, not too loosey-goosey. That's what you want. Now let's try to imagine we're beginning yoga students, and we're going to reach up like we're doing a sun salutation, squeezing the inner thighs, rolling the frontal hips together, rolling the shoulders a little bit together, and then exhale, let the arms come down, let the knees soften a bit so that the hips can communicate with the feet, and the shoulders can feel comfortable. Inhale, squeeze as if you had the ball between the inner thighs. That squeeze launches the arms, and just flap your wings. Squeeze, rotating into the center line, hugging the midline even though we're now extending. It's as if I were holding a pillar of a Greek column, pressing my hips into it, and then releasing and letting my body structure find its own course. So again, we're finding the central axis and then releasing. Simple stuff. Let's step the left foot back. See if we can put this into play in Warrior One. Sink your hips down and relax into your structure. Your structure may not be great. You might be injured, and that's why we do yoga. And that's why we do the squeezing to the midline and then the releasing and the restoration of form of the body. So let's straighten the front leg. Inhale, let's reach up like we're going to grab that Greek column and press the palms into one another. Roll the shoulders, the fronts of the shoulders forward a little bit. And then exhale, let the arms come down, front knee bends. Inhale, straighten the front leg. See if you can feel like you're wrapping the inner thighs together and squeezing the imaginary ball, even though the legs are bifurcated. And then exhale. This is it. Inhale, squeeze, hug inner thighs, engage that back glute, and release. We'll try to make it more natural now, maybe not as muscular. I'm not going to call out a few of the athletes in the group who are probably overdoing, over-embracing their muscular grandeur. So when the muscles relax, they become sensory organs. When the muscles relax on the exhale, they become sensory organs. We should be able to feel the communication through the joint capsules. And that's the value of staying strong, is that we can truly relax and not fall apart. So we bring the feet together, step that right foot back. This is just weird, simple stuff. As you inhale, the front leg straightens, the inner thighs try to communicate and squeeze in, and the arms come up and grab the column. If it's too much to reach up, Jeanette, I didn't see if you're in class, then you just reach forward and then exhale. Breathe. So we don't need to do grand yoga to find this strength and relaxation. And again, if you're in class, you're like, oh, this is way too simple. Go back to side one. If you're getting the premise of what I'm suggesting, of hugging and squeezing into midline and then releasing, you can go anywhere you want. You could, for example, as you reach up and squeeze, launch into Warrior Three. There's your column, still squeezing the inner thighs and the arms. And you could do that. Inhale and exhale. But you don't need to show off. All you need to do is get the basic principle. Step the right foot back, inhale, squeeze inner thighs. Hug the muscles to the bones, hug the column. Maybe a back bend is starting to happen. Exhale, sink. Step the feet together. And let's take a forward fold. You can take your hands to your frontal hip creases. You can even pigeon toe in. And so before you forward fold, let's just cover the hips again. It's just things that people generally don't learn. So as I start to fold, I'm going to roll the outer hips inward, the inner thighs, as my primary pattern of the forward fold. You can take the hands to a chair, the ground. Then the secondary pattern, as the legs might start to straighten, is to open outward as if I had that strap around the feet and pushing the outer edges of the feet outward, letting the hip capsules open, and then be able to expand through the knees into the feet. Bend the knees, maybe even pigeon toe your feet in. Take your hands to your knees. Exhale, come up. And then there's an expansion and reversal of the hips. Just try that again. This is simple stuff that's going to pay off dividends. Hands to hips. Take an inhale as you exhale. Think of rolling those into, it's called the quad, Chinese or Tai Chi, into the divot of the creases of the legs. You drop, you can hang your head, you can bend your knees, you can even keep your hands wedged or sandwiched in the crease of your upper leg bone and your belly. This could be it. Notice the shoulders are also rolling forward to allow the head and the back of the neck to release. You can drop your hands to the floor or chair and do that. And then if you wanted to take it further, you start to straighten your legs, you start to push the outer edges of the feet apart. You start to move the shoulders apart. Exhale, release. Cave into the inner thighs. Inhale, come up. Okay, so that opening and closing of the hips is really important. One more. We're going to do a Garuda Asana. So we're going to we're actually going to cross the midline to achieve the same or similar premise of squeezing a soccer ball. We're going to do a little Broadway musical cross step of the right leg in front of the left. And then we're going to bend both knees like that. And we're going to squeeze the inner thighs with this cross pattern. What is this? This is nothing more than how I started class when I was down here and I'm saying, let's squeeze our body in like an embryo. But now that we're standing, we need to learn how to do a standing. So we cross, we're going to squeeze. We're either going to take the hands to the shoulders like that, squeeze, sink, inhale, and exhale, unwrap. Go to the other side. Left foot comes across. We bend the knees, lifting the front heel. We squeeze, we hug. The body breathes. This is it. Now, if you're, again, you're one of these people that's saying, hey, Dan, this is just too easy. I'm a super duper yogini. And it's not enough for me to feel the front of the hips rolling and squeezing together, front of the shoulders squeezing together, and then opening, relaxing. Fine. Do a full Garuda Asana and touch your elbows to your knees. Squeeze. And then release. Just don't get injured. Squeeze. Frontal hips rolling together, shoulders rolling together. and release. One more. Again, you can do this simple. Squeeze and release. All we're doing is moving to the midline and out and getting the joint capsules to open. Okay? All right, so we're going to go onto our backs for a second and do a little more work before we stand again. So just watch before you go down. And you've all done this before, but now we're going to move the hip and the shoulder capsules to get even more opening. And so we've kind of done our core work. We'll do a couple things before we start the following. We're going to snow angel our arms out, and our knees are bent. As you inhale, you're going to drop your knees to the right, and you're going to look right, and you're going to go ahead and roll your left palm to the ground, look at your right knee. That's your inhale pattern. So watch first, exhale to center. Inhale, we're going to roll over to the left. We're going to put our right palm down and exhale to center. And this is the preliminary exercise to open the shoulders, to open the hips. Go ahead and try it. I'll verbally cue you through it. And we're going to stretch open the psoas. We're going to open the hips a little bit after that inner thigh hugging work. Move on your own if you've been studying with me. Inhale, we go to the side. The hands are in opposite patterns, so therefore the shoulders are in opposite patterns, like wringing a washcloth. Inhale, the knees drop to the right. You're looking at the right palm. You're letting the shoulder blades remain planted on the ground. Exhale to center. Inhale and exhale. Simple stuff. Moving the hip capsules, moving the shoulder capsules. Now as you go to the right, the next time, stop and stay. This is like warrior two, isn't it? A little bit. And you can start to push your left knee on the diagonal away from you, lifting your left hip off the ground. Now we're going to get a little more work in that left hip. Don't overdo. Exhale, flop onto your back to the center. Inhale, roll the knees, keeping the feet wide, over to the left. And start to push with that right knee, the upper knee to the front left corner of the mat, stretching the inner leg. Eccentric contraction. Right palm pressing to the ground, looking at your left palm. And then release, flop onto your back, hug your knees. You can cross your ankles, squeeze. Keep your squeeze, inhale, roll back a little, exhale, Navasana. See if you can nail it. Squeezing into the midline if you can. If you're a beginner, you're just here squeezing, it's fine. Navasana is just a show-off way to feel that you can squeeze into the core and then extend out of the core. Squeeze into the core and then extend from that connection to the body. Not a big deal. So let's take this one step further. Again, watch on your backs. And as we go over to the left, we're going to grab our right wrist like this and just start to draw it up and overhead like in a diagonal. And if that feels okay, we start with that. We're going to start to slide the right leg away from us. So be careful. And then we go to the center, exhale. Inhale, we grab the left wrist with the right hand and we pull it up and overhead. Maybe it's enough to just push the upper knee away. Maybe you can slide it away like that. Okay, so go ahead and try it. Go onto our backs. Maybe squeeze your knees to get into the core, which you want to maintain sense of. Inhale, the knees go out to the left. The right arm reaches up and over, across the body. You grab that right wrist of the left hand and just give it a nice stretch. Head is rolling. Come back to center. Inhale, roll the knees to the right. Left arm comes up and slightly overhead. Grab that left wrist and gently pull it. And then release. You get the picture. And you can add the extending leg if you want. So as I go over to the right with the knees, I reach over across the body with the left arm and gently pull. Maybe I slide and extend out of that left hip joint through the knee, through the foot. You have to respect your own body to see what's possible. Let's come back to center. Let's hug our knees into the body. You can cross your ankles, squeeze. Maybe switch the cross of your shins and squeeze. And you can roll up again into your Navasana. Test out your squeezing ability. Oh, this isn't enough. Okay, well, how about doing this and then squeezing? Expanding and squeezing for the advanced people. By now you should be a pro because you know how to squeeze in, you know how to expand out. Beginners, not so much. Let's do a little more. Let's do Garuda Asana on our backs just to emphasize this squeeze and release. But before we do, can you just do it here on in your seated body and cross your right knee over your left like that. Then can you take your hands to your right shin like that, or knee. Take an inhale. As you exhale this time, you're going to squeeze, roll your shoulder points forward, and pull your knees in toward you. And release. Inhale, exhale. Can we switch the cross? This is for the beginners just to see the left knee to knee, we hold. This already takes some core work just to not to fall back. Inhale, open the chest, the shoulders roll back. The hips are trying to open, but they're bound. And then we squeeze in, hip points, shoulder points. Inhale, exhale. So even if you are, again, at the beach doing secret yoga, inhale and exhale. Want to take it a step further though, we go on to the backs. Take a peek first. First, we're going to do a Supta Baddha Konasana to release the inner thighs. Just brush them from the hip points out. Let the arms spread out. Let the body breathe like a good bottle of wine. Then we're going to do the same thing on our backs. We're going to cross the right knee over the left. And we can take the hands behind the head to start with, just to support it. Take an inhale to roll the chest open, press the spines of the shoulder, the bony spines of the shoulders back. Yes, maybe a little bit of arch of the low back as the hips roll away. Exhale, just gently lift the head up, pull the knees toward you, both feet off the floor, little crunch. Inhale, left foot down on the ground, roll the head back, press the scapula open into the floor, and then exhale, squeeze. You've done this before. We'll do 5, 6, 7 on one side. And notice how you're not just working your abs here, which you've done 1,000,001 times, but feel the rolling in of the hip points, the rolling into the fronts of the shoulders. You need extra credit? Come up on exhale, stay up. Then you straighten your legs in the crossing pattern, bring your arms forward. Always grab your head to go down. Release Supta Baddha Konasana. Soles of feet together, knees wide. You can keep your hands behind your head. Waggle your head left to right to make sure the throat chakra hasn't gotten too compressed. Well, let's try the other side. We're going to cross our left knee over our right. Inhale, roll the shoulders back with the low back. Exhale, here come the knees toward us. The head comes up. Inhale, right foot down, taps down, exhale, come up. Notice as you're doing this, by the way, which part of your body wants to come up first? So are you a head person trying to lift your head off the ground? Or can you intelligize the hips and the legs and let them be the primary or initial squeeze and lifter, which then ripples up the spine and lifts the mid-spine and upper spine. Release Supta Baddha Konasana, soles of feet together, arms apart. Take a few breaths there while I grab some water. Relax your throat, relax your neck, relax your inner legs. And then go ahead and bring your knees together. Hug your knees and rock and roll up to seated again. Hopefully each time you do this, and if you can't do it, just roll to the side. You feel the value of having that squeeze in. And then let's stand up. So now that we've done the preliminaries, we've got some time to flow. And to put this whole practice, it's a lot, I know, and if you've been coming, you have a little bit more sense of moving into the center, whether it's a Garuda Asana, full cross of the arms, whether it's just bringing the forearms together, which is what I'm going to recommend, and then an opening out into extended poses. So let's flow a little bit. Here we are in Tadasana. What do you feel? Can you relax your low back? Have your knees a little bit soft. Can you feel the pads of your feet as you press each one into the ground like you're stomping? So that the hip, as you roll to the right side, the right hip presses through the right knee into the right foot. As you roll your weight to your left foot, can you feel the connection of the left hip through the left knee into the foot? That's critical. So now as you stand in Tadasana, can you feel both hips and place your hands in the front of your hips? And what is the position of the hips? So they roll, trying to roll forward into that inner thigh squeeze. Are they moving out? And how does that affect your low back? So there's micro movements involved here which really dictate the ease of the poses. So we're always moving in one pattern or the other. The shoulders coming forward, the hip points coming forward, and then opening. Some people are over openers. They're like over sharers. And they want to just embrace everybody. And they walk around all day like this. Everything is wonderful. Okay, you know who you are. Then there are the closed people. Now we're getting to the psychology of it. They walk around and try to protect in their bubble. So try to find an even balance. Be aware of your patterns. We're going to play with the oscillation of these patterns. So inhale, the arms come up like a normal yoga person. Exhale, let's squeeze down into the midline, bend the knees, bring the forearms together, hug the core. Shift your weight to your right foot, step your left foot back. Inhale, warrior one. Arms come up. Exhale, Forearms come together, steps of feet together. Squeeze into your Utkatasana. And then exhale, release. Other side. Inhale, coming up with the arms. Exhale, we squeeze the knees, the forearms. We weight into the left foot, slide right foot back. Bring the arms up, inhale. Big opening through the hip joints, out through the knees, through the feet, shoulders, elbows, hands. Exhale, we close the joints and release. Try it again. Inhale, opening pattern, all the joints expressing out to the feet and the hands, closing pattern. Step left foot back, brush knee, expand out of your joints, your hips, your shoulders. Eccentric contraction. Exhale, squeeze, concentric contraction. Release. Inhale, open to the whole world. Feel open. Good. Exhale, close. Step right foot back, brush. Let's start to flow. You get the picture. And now the breath can start to lead the way. This is the way that Vinyasa Yoga should function. And the warriors in the group are, again, over squeezing. So once you have the premise, soften it. You don't have to hug the hell out of your body. You just want to make contact. And then it becomes much more subtle. And the muscles, again, become more sensory. This could be your whole pattern of your practice. If you just get this simple idea, balance becomes easier. The joints are open. And I'm just flowing. I could slow it down. Okay, let's add on to this, out to the side. Inhale, reaching up. Exhale, coming into our forearm bound Utkatasana. Step left foot back, heel in. Inhale, we open. This time we pivot out to warrior two and let the arms open like sails. Inhale, straighten the front leg, lift the arms. Expression out through the joints. Exhale, bring the forearms together. Squeeze the inner thighs, even though the feet are apart now. Inhale, open. Exhale, squeeze. If this is too wide a stance, shorten it. What's going on? I'm opening the shoulders, the hips. I'm moving them together, hugging, wrapping the shoulders in. You want a full Utkatasana eagle arms? Go ahead, take it. Feel that wrapping. Now stay in the wrapped pattern, hugging in, frontal hips hugging, even though they're apart, shoulders. Launch your side angle pose from that strength. Should be a piece of cake. Because I'm protecting my hip joints, my shoulder joints. Now from here, start to open that left shoulder. Start to rotate the chest. Inhale, reach straight up. Lift up. Bring the front foot parallel to the back foot. We're in Prasarita again. Inhale, open. Exhale, close into horse stance. Doesn't have to be big. Inhale, open. Get tighter between the feet if it's too much. This time as you close, go ahead and prop your hands on your inner thighs. Feet to parallel. Inhale, lift the chest. Exhale, we're going to close the right shoulder, open the left, and rotate the chest to the left. Inhale to center, and then we're going to close the left shoulder, open the right. You've done this many, many times. Now, can you feel how the hip closes and opens as well? Slightly. The other teacher told you that the hips stay the same, but they don't. There's a slight movement of where your hand is in your inner leg. Inhale to center. For example, we roll our chest to the right. That left hand pushes into the inner left leg, gets it to hug into the midline. That allows us to open out to the right. Inhale to center, exhale. Closing and opening shoulder and hip joints, along with the ribs, and just nourishing the spine. Let's take this to the ground, walk out to wide-legged down dog, and feel what the legs are doing. So, again, we can play this game of moving into the midline, bending our knees, coming up onto our heels, bending our elbows. Come down and watch if it's confusing. I'm now trying to be like a bug, hugging the midline, and then exhale, expanding out. Inhale, hugging the midline. You're really savvy. You can even drop your knees down to the ground like that. And exhale out. Bend the joints, the knees and the elbows, a hug in. Exhale, expand out. Walk the hands back, flat back. Exhale, soften the knees and the hips can communicate with the feet. Hands to hips, and up you come. Let's go to the other side. It's just simple but complicated. Here we go. Inhale, we reach up. How do the hips feel in connecting through the knees to the feet now? Hopefully they're starting, those channels are opening. Exhale, we squeeze into the midline. Maybe it's gentle. Step the right foot back, brush the knee. Inhale, extend out of that back hip, that front hip, through the knee, through the feet, shoulders through the arms, the elbow joint, hands not locked. Open out to warrior two. Palms facing the direction that you're looking. Lift the arms a little higher than the shoulders. Notice if you locked your elbows, how tight your neck is. Soften your elbows. Expand like a balloon rather than a stick. Straighten the front leg, inhale. Exhale, bend and bring the forearms together. Squeeze the frontal hips, squeeze the inner thighs. Don't overdo it. Inhale, expand from the shoulder and hip joints. Exhale, close those joints. You're like a giant toy that can close in, be packed away, and then be opened up. Use your breath, send it out through the joints. Rein it in. One more. When we close, we find the core pattern. This is like a core crunch. We keep it. So lay that right arm on the front knee, and then we have very strong side angle. From there, the frontal hips are still trying to communicate with one another. Then we can open the pose. We can start to roll the chest open to the sky. Inhale, come up, reaching up, feet to parallel. I have a few more minutes to complete this side, and then we'll wrap it up. So again, if you have injuries in your hips, knees, etc., your stances are going to be tighter. You're not going to go with a wide stance. You're going to go with a moderate proposal. You're going to be working with your hands on a chair, not even the floor. Doesn't matter. I can open my shoulder joints. I can roll them back. I can spin the palms open. I can think of turning the feet out even though they're not moving mechanically out to open the fronts of the hips. And then I sink down into my horse pose. open and close. If your knees hurt as you sink, take your hips back further. Engage your core more. Most people pitch forward too much. Then we take the hands to the inner thighs. Inhale. Then exhale, we do the rotation of the shoulders. So you know the basics. And then the advanced folks, now that they know that the shoulders are good, how about go ahead and as you roll your chest to the left, start to drop down into that right hip like that. This is for the advanced folks. Inhale to center. Exhale, you roll your chest to the right. Drop down to Skandasana. And the left hip is rolling with the left shoulder. And what's the right hip doing? It's opening with the right shoulder. You can do this with your fingers on the ground for support. And all we're doing is opening and closing the joints in the legs. Don't overdo it. Forward fold in Prasarita. Keeping the knees open. Keeping the hips communicating out through the knees to the feet. And then hands under the heart. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, soften the knees. Hands and hips. Come up and then turn. And let's have a seat. So that was a lot. But hopefully, you get a sense of what I'm working with these days. Give our bodies a final squeeze here. And lay on the back, take a happy baby. Take a strap around the feet or the toes. Just roll on your low back side to side. Roll on your ribs. Little circle on your low back. If it feels good in happy baby, where do you go? You extend the legs out. The pose we were just doing, Prasarita, straddle. But on your back. And you can have a big strap around the feet instead of holding your big toes. But you're paying attention to those hip joints, those knee joints. And if you don't lock them, if you don't lock the knee joints, then the low back can flatten to the ground easier and be happier. And then let's just close it off. Final squeeze. Supta Baddha Konasana is probably going to feel real good. Soles of feet together, or just Shavasana with the toes out, the arms to the ground, and relax. If you're somebody who finds trouble relaxing in Shavasana, even after all that practice, do exactly what we did at the beginning of class and squeeze the muscles to the bones and then allow them to relax. When you finally do relax for the final minute of class, and you're welcome to stay more, regain the notion of the breath and the intelligence of the breath, flooding through the muscles and allowing them to be sensory organs now. Feel the sensations created in the body. Stay in Shavasana if you can longer, but otherwise I'm going to close class, bending one knee the other. I'm going to roll to one side, come up seated, close it off. Palms to heart.